Billionaire CEO divorced her for being barren. She returns as his heart surgeon with his secret triplets. Dr. Washington, we need you in or 3 immediately. VIP patient, massive MI, needs emergency triple bypass. Dr. Kendra Washington looked up from her patient charts, her calm demeanor never wavering despite the urgency in the nurse's voice. At 34, she was one of the youngest chief cardiac surgeons in the country, known for her steady hands and ability to save patients other doctors had written off. Vitals, she asked, already moving toward the surgical wing. Critical, but stable. Patient's name is Harrison Whitmore. Apparently, he's some big shot CEO. Kendra stopped dead in her tracks. The clipboard in her hands suddenly felt impossibly heavy. What did you say? Harrison Whitmore? You know him? His people are demanding the best surgeon available, and Chief Martinez said that's you. Kendra's mind raced back 9 years to the last time she'd heard that name spoken aloud. The same name that had been on divorce papers citing her failure to provide an heir as grounds for dissolution of marriage. The same man who had called her defective and barren before tossing her aside like damaged goods. Have you ever had to face the person who broke your heart while holding their life in your hands? Have you ever gotten a chance to show someone who underestimated you just how wrong they were? This is the story of a woman who was thrown away like damaged goods, only to return as the one person who could save the man who destroyed her. But what Harrison didn't know was that Kendra had given him the heirs he'd wanted so desperately, 3 beautiful children he'd never met. Stay with me to discover what happens when past and present collide in an operating room, and whether love can survive the ultimate test of forgiveness. If you believe in the power of redemption and second chances, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. 9 years earlier, the mansion in Pacific Heights felt more like a museum than a home, with its pristine white walls and carefully curated artwork that cost more than most people's houses. Kendra Washington Whitmore sat in the formal living room, staring at the negative pregnancy test in her trembling hands, the 15th one in 3 years of marriage. Another failure? Harrison's voice cut through the silence like ice. He stood in the doorway of his home office, his 6'2" frame imposing in his perfectly tailored Armani suit. At 33, Harrison Whitmore was the youngest CEO in his company's history, worth over $3 billion and accustomed to getting everything he wanted. Everything except the one thing that mattered most to his family legacy. The doctor said we should give it more time, Kendra said quietly, not looking up from the test. My hormone levels are improving, and with the new fertility treatments, it's been 3 years, Kendra. Harrison's voice was cold, clinical. 3 years of treatments, specialists, procedures. Maybe it's time to accept the truth. What truth? That you can't give me what I need. The words hit Kendra like a physical blow. She finally looked up at her husband, searching his face for any trace of the man who had once held her while she cried after each miscarriage, who had whispered promises that they would figure it out together. That man was long gone. What I need. Kendra's voice rose with hurt and anger. What about what we need? What about our marriage, our love for each other? Harrison adjusted his cufflinks, a gesture Kendra had learned meant he was about to say something that would hurt her. Love doesn't continue the Whitmore legacy. Love doesn't provide heirs for the company my great-grandfather built. I'm not a broodmare, Harrison. I'm your wife. You're supposed to be both. His gray eyes were cold as winter steel. My grandmother was right. I should have married someone from our circle, someone with a proven family line. Kendra felt her heart shatter a little more. Your grandmother has hated me from day one because I'm not from old money. Because my father was a mechanic and my mother was a teacher. Because you can't do the one job that matters. Harrison moved toward his bar cart, pouring himself a scotch with steady hands. Veronica Patterson is engaged to Charles Rothschild. They're already planning children. Jennifer Ashworth just gave birth to twins. Even Patricia Melbourne, who's barely 25, is pregnant with her second child. Each name felt like a dagger. These were the women Harrison's family had wanted him to marry, the society princesses who came with the right pedigree and, apparently, working reproductive systems. So that's it. Kendra stood up, her hands shaking with emotion. 3 years of marriage reduced to my failure to get pregnant. It's not personal, Kendra. It's practical, not personal. Kendra's voice cracked. You're talking about divorce because I can't have children, and it's not personal? Harrison took a long sip of his scotch before meeting her eyes. You're a beautiful, intelligent woman. You'll find someone who doesn't need what I need from a wife. Someone who can love you as you are. And what am I, Harrison? Defective goods? You're barren. The word fell between them like a bomb. And I can't spend the rest of my life married to someone who can't give me children. Kendra stared at her husband in shock. The man she'd fallen in love with 5 years ago, who had courted her with poetry and flowers, who had promised to love her in sickness and in health, had just reduced her to her biological functions. Get out, she whispered. Kendra, get out. Her voice echoed through the cavernous room. Get out of this room. Get out of my sight. And don't you dare try to touch me or comfort me or pretend you have any decency left. Harrison set down his glass and straightened his tie. I'll have my lawyer contact yours tomorrow. I'll be generous in the settlement. I don't want your money. You'll take it. You'll need it to start over. His tone was matter of fact, as if they were discussing a business transaction. I've already spoken to Patricia Melbourne. We'll be announcing our engagement next month. The room spun around Kendra as the full scope of his betrayal hit her. You've already chosen my replacement. I've chosen someone who can give me what I need. Someone who can breed for you, you mean? Harrison's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. Patricia is 26, from a good family, and her mother had 5 children with no complications. You've researched her fertility like you're buying livestock. I've done my due diligence. Something I should have done before I married you. Kendra felt the last piece of her heart break. I loved you. I loved you more than anything in this world. Love isn't enough anymore. It was never enough for you. Harrison moved toward the door, then paused. You're a good woman, Kendra. You deserve someone who can appreciate what you have to offer. And what do I have to offer, in your expert opinion? Beauty, intelligence, kindness. Just not fertility. Get out of my house. It's my house. Then I'll leave. The lawyers will handle the details. You can stay until the paperwork is finalized. Kendra watched her husband walk away, his footsteps echoing on the marble floors. 20 minutes later, she heard his car start and drive away. She would later learn that he drove straight to Patricia Melbourne's apartment, where he spent the night celebrating their future together. 3 weeks later, Kendra signed divorce papers in a lawyer's office downtown, her signature shaky with tears and residual heartbreak. Harrison hadn't even bothered to attend the meeting, sending his attorney to handle what he clearly viewed as an unpleasant but necessary business transaction. For weeks after that, Kendra was throwing up in her new apartment's tiny bathroom, staring at a positive pregnancy test with a mixture of joy and terror. She was pregnant. After 3 years of trying, countless treatments, and the devastating end of her marriage, her body had finally done what everyone said it couldn't do. She was carrying Harrison Whitmore's child. Present day, San Francisco General Hospital. Dr. Washington, are you all right? Kendra snapped back to the present, realizing she'd been standing frozen in the hallway while medical staff bustled around her. She forced her professional mask back into place, the one that had served her well through medical school, residency, and 9 years of rebuilding her life from scratch. I'm fine. What's the patient's current status? Pressure's dropping. We need to get him into surgery now. Kendra nodded, her mind shifting into the clinical focus that had made her one of the most sought-after cardiac surgeons on the West Coast. Whatever her personal history with Harrison Whitmore, right now he was just another patient whose life depended on her skill. Prep or 3. I'll scrub in immediately. And notify anesthesiology that we're dealing with a complex triple bypass on a patient with significant arterial blockage. Yes, doctor. As Kendra walked toward the surgical suite, she caught a glimpse of herself in the hallway mirror. Gone was the uncertain young woman who had left San Francisco 9 years ago. In her place stood a confident surgeon with purpose in her stride and steel in her spine. She had built this life through sheer determination, 16-hour study days, and countless nights when she wanted to quit, but couldn't because she had 3 little lives depending on her success. The thought of her children, Harrison's children, sent a familiar pang through her chest. Lily, James, and Noah were 8 years old now, brilliant and beautiful, and completely unaware that their father was about to be under her knife. Dr. Washington called Dr. Martinez, the chief of staff, as she approached the surgical wing. I wanted to brief you on this case personally. The patient is high profile, and there's likely to be media attention. I understand. What's his medical history? No previous cardiac issues, but significant stress-related factors. He collapsed during a board meeting and went into full cardiac arrest. The paramedics got him back, but the damage is extensive. Kendra nodded, filing away the information. Family history. Father died of heart attack at 52. Grandfather had bypass surgery at 45. Strong genetic predisposition. Of course there was. Kendra remembered Harrison's family medical history well. It was one of the reasons they'd been so eager for him to produce heirs quickly before his own health became an issue. Any family members here? A fiancée, Patricia Melbourne. She's been quite vocal about her expectations for his care. Kendra's stomach dropped. Patricia Melbourne. The woman Harrison had left her for, the one he'd chosen for her proven fertility. After 9 years, they were still together, still building the perfect society life that Kendra hadn't been able to provide. I see. Well, regardless of family dynamics, the patient will receive the best possible care. That's why you're handling the case, Kendra. You're the best we have. 20 minutes later, Kendra stood in OR3, her hands steady as she made the first incision into Harrison Whitmore's chest. He looked older than his 42 years, stress lines marking his face even in unconsciousness. His dark hair was streaked with silver now, and he'd lost some of the arrogant vitality that had once defined him. Patient is stable, announced the anesthesiologist. Ready to proceed. Beginning arterial bypass, Kendra said, her voice calm and controlled. First graft to the LAD. For the next 4 hours, Kendra worked with the precision and focus that had made her legendary among her colleagues. She rerouted Harrison's blocked arteries, gave his heart new pathways for blood flow, and essentially rebuilt the organ that had failed him. It was ironic, she reflected, that the woman he'd discarded as defective was now the person holding his life in her hands. Final sutures completed, she announced as the surgery neared its end. Patient's vitals are strong. The bypasses are functioning perfectly. Excellent work, Dr. Washington, said her surgical resident. You saved his life. Kendra looked down at Harrison's unconscious face, feeling a complex mixture of emotions she couldn't quite name. That's what we do here. We save lives, regardless of personal history. As they prepared to move Harrison to recovery, Kendra removed her surgical gloves and mask. In a few hours, he would wake up to find the woman he'd thrown away standing over his hospital bed, the woman who had just given him a second chance at life. She wondered if he would recognize her immediately, or if success had changed her as much as it seemed to have aged him. Dr. Washington, her surgical nurse approached with a clipboard. The patient's fiancé is asking for an update. She's been quite persistent. I'll speak with her shortly. First, I want to check on Mr. Whitmore's post-operative status. Of course, he's being moved to the cardiac intensive care unit now. Kendra made her way to the SICU, where Harrison was being settled into a private room befitting his VIP status. He looked vulnerable lying there, connected to monitors and 4 lines, a far cry from the powerful CEO who had once dismissed her so callously. His vitals are excellent, reported the ICU nurse. Dr. Peterson expects him to regain consciousness within the hour. Good. I'll be back to check on him shortly. As Kendra left the ICU, she nearly collided with a woman in the hallway. A very pregnant woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and enough diamonds to fund a small hospital wing. Excuse me, the woman said imperiously. Are you the surgeon who operated on Harrison Whitmore? Kendra found herself face to face with Patricia Melbourne for the first time in 9 years. She looked exactly as Kendra remembered, beautiful in a cold, porcelain doll way, with the kind of ageless perfection that money could buy. I'm Dr. Washington, Mr. Whitmore's cardiac surgeon. You must be Ms. Melbourne. Mrs. Whitmore, actually. We married 6 months ago. Patricia's hand moved protectively to her swollen belly. I'm carrying his heir. The words hit Kendra like a physical blow, but her professional training kept her expression neutral. Congratulations. Your husband's surgery was successful. He should make a full recovery. How long before he can return to work? He has several important board meetings this week. Kendra stared at this woman who spoke about Harrison's major surgery like it was a minor inconvenience to their social calendar. Mrs. Whitmore, your husband just underwent a triple bypass. He'll be in the hospital for at least a week, followed by several weeks of cardiac rehabilitation. He won't be returning to his normal schedule for at least 2 months. 2 months? That's impossible. He's launching a new product line, and there's the Melbourne Foundation Gala next month. I'm sorry, but your husband's heart nearly killed him today. He needs time to heal, or he could suffer another, potentially fatal cardiac event. Patricia's face flushed with irritation. I don't think you understand who my husband is. He's Harrison Whitmore, CEO of Whitmore Technologies. He doesn't have time for an extended recovery. And I'm Dr. Kendra Washington, the surgeon who just saved his life. He'll recover according to medical necessity, not social obligations. Something flickered in Patricia's eyes, a moment of recognition, perhaps, though Kendra wasn't sure if the woman even remembered her existence. Washington, Patricia repeated slowly. That name sounds familiar. I need to check on other patients. You can see your husband once he's fully conscious, but I want to limit visitors while he's stabilizing. Kendra walked away before Patricia could respond, her heart pounding with a mixture of anger and old pain. So Harrison had gotten everything he wanted, the society wife, the baby, the perfect life he'd thrown her away to achieve. She wondered if he was happy, if Patricia Melbourne had been worth destroying their marriage. She wondered if he ever thought about the woman he'd called barren and defective, or if she'd been completely erased from his memory the moment the divorce was finalized. Most of all, she wondered what he would say when he woke up and found her standing over his bed, the successful surgeon he'd never believed she could become. Mommy. Kendra's contemplation was interrupted by a familiar voice echoing down the hospital corridor. She turned to see her 8-year-old daughter Lily running toward her, her dark curls bouncing with each step. Behind her came James and Noah, her identical twin sons, both wearing the serious expressions that reminded Kendra so much of their father. Lily, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be with Mrs. Chun. She had to pick up her grandson from school, so she brought us here instead, James explained with the logical precision he'd inherited from Harrison. We're supposed to wait in the family lounge until you're done with surgery. Kendra's heart clenched as she looked at her 3 children, Harrison's children, standing in the same hospital where their father lay recovering from surgery he didn't even know they existed. Lily had Harrison's gray eyes and his stubborn chin, along with Kendra's artistic temperament. James was the leader of the 3, with Harrison's analytical mind and natural authority. Noah was the gentle one, bookish and thoughtful, with Harrison's intelligence but Kendra's empathetic nature. They were perfect, beautiful, brilliant children who had grown up believing their father was simply someone who couldn't be part of their lives. Kendra had never badmouthed Harrison to them, but she'd also never told them the truth about why he wasn't around. How could she explain that their father had thrown her away for being unable to have children, only for her to give birth to triplets just months after their divorce was finalized? How did surgery go? Noah asked quietly. At 8, he was already reading at a high school level and had an uncanny ability to sense his mother's moods. It went well, sweetheart. The patient will be fine. You look sad, Lily observed with the directness that made her such a gifted artist. Did something happen? Kendra knelt down to her children's level, studying their faces, Harrison's eyes, Harrison's bone structure, Harrison's intelligence looking back at her. Sometimes taking care of people brings up complicated feelings. But I'm not sad. I'm grateful that I could help someone who needed it. That's what you always say, James said with a small smile. That helping people is the best job in the world. It is. And having you 3 makes everything worth it. As Kendra hugged her children, she caught sight of Patricia Melbourne watching them from down the hallway. The woman's eyes were fixed on the triplets with an expression Kendra couldn't quite read, curiosity, perhaps, or something else entirely. Come on, Kendra said, standing and taking Lily's hand. Let's get you some dinner from the cafeteria, and then Mrs. Chun can take you home. I need to check on my patient one more time. As they walked toward the elevator, Kendra's mind raced with the implications of what had just happened. Harrison was here, in her hospital, under her care. Patricia was here too, pregnant with the child Harrison had wanted so desperately. And somewhere in this building, the 3 children Harrison had unknowingly created were eating hospital cafeteria food and doing their homework in a family lounge. The truth is finally out. 1 hour later. Harrison Whitmore opened his eyes slowly, consciousness returning in waves. The first thing he noticed was the steady beeping of medical equipment. The second was the antiseptic smell that meant he was in a hospital. The third was the dull ache in his chest where someone had obviously performed major surgery. "Welcome back, Mr. Whitmore." The voice was familiar, hauntingly so, but it couldn't be who he thought it was. Harrison turned his head toward the sound and felt his world tilt on its axis. Dr. Kendra Washington stood beside his bed, her medical chart in hand, looking nothing like the broken woman who had left San Francisco 9 years ago. She was taller somehow, more confident, with an air of professional authority that commanded respect. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she wore scrubs with the easy comfort of someone who belonged in them. She was beautiful, more beautiful than he remembered, with a strength and purpose that radiated from her very presence. "Kendra." His voice was rough from the breathing tube, but the disbelief was clear. "Dr. Washington," she corrected coolly, not moving closer to his bed. "I performed your cardiac surgery this afternoon. Triple bypass. The procedure was successful, and your prognosis is excellent." Harrison stared at her, trying to process what he was seeing. "You're a doctor." "I'm a surgeon. Chief of cardiac surgery, actually." "How? When did you?" "I finished medical school 4 years after our divorce. Completed my residency in record time. I've been practicing here for 3 years." Her tone was clinical, professional, giving away nothing of what she might be feeling. Harrison tried to sit up, but the pain in his chest and the 4 lines stopped him. "Kendra, I can't believe you saved my life. I did my job. Nothing more, nothing less." "Your job?" Harrison's mind was still foggy from anesthesia, but he could hear the ice in her voice. "Kendra, we need to talk. There's so much I need to say to you. We have nothing to discuss beyond your medical care." Kendra moved to his bedside monitor, checking his vital signs with practiced efficiency. "Your heart rate is elevated. You need to remain calm during your recovery." "How can I remain calm? My ex-wife, who I haven't seen in 9 years, just performed surgery on me. The woman I—" He stopped himself, uncertain how to finish that sentence. "The woman you what, Harrison? The woman you divorced for being barren? The woman you called defective?" For the first time, emotion crept into Kendra's voice. "You were very clear about my inadequacies 9 years ago." Harrison closed his eyes, the memories of their final confrontation flooding back with painful clarity. "I was wrong. About everything. I was so wrong." "Yes, you were. But that's ancient history now. Is it? Because seeing you here, like this, Kendra, you're amazing. You became everything I always knew you could be. I became everything I needed to be. For myself, I'm proud of you." Kendra's laugh was bitter. "Your pride means nothing to me, Harrison. I don't need your validation or approval. I stopped needing anything from you the day you signed our divorce papers." "Kendra, please. Can we just talk? Really talk. About what? About how you were right to leave me. About how Patricia Melbourne turned out to be the perfect wife you needed." Harrison's face went pale. "You know about Patricia. I met your wife in the hallway. Congratulations on your marriage and your upcoming child. You got everything you wanted." "Did I?" Harrison's voice was quiet, uncertain. "I thought I did, but seeing you now—" "Don't." Kendra's voice was sharp with warning. "Don't you dare start with regrets and what-ifs. You made your choice 9 years ago. You chose someone who could give you children over someone who loved you unconditionally. I made the biggest mistake of my life. You made the choice that was right for you, and it worked out perfectly. You have a beautiful, fertile wife and a baby on the way. The Whitmore legacy is secure." Harrison studied Kendra's face, looking for any crack in her professional composure. "Are you happy? Did you find someone who deserved you? My personal life is none of your business." "Are you married?" "Mr. Whitmore, I need to remind you that I'm your doctor, not your ex-wife. Our relationship is purely professional. You can't just pretend our history doesn't exist. I can and I will. What exists between us is irrelevant to your medical care." The door to Harrison's room opened, and Patricia Melbourne entered with the confidence of someone accustomed to getting her way. She was dressed in designer maternity wear that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, her pregnant belly prominently displayed. "Harrison, darling, you're awake." Patricia moved to his bedside, pointedly ignoring Kendra's presence. "I've been so worried. The doctor said you nearly died." "I'm fine, Patricia. Thanks to Dr. Washington." Patricia finally acknowledged Kendra with a cool nod. Yes, thank you for doing your job. When can my husband be discharged? We have several important commitments this week. Your husband will be discharged when he's medically stable and ready for release. Not before. I don't think you understand the importance of my husband's schedule. And I don't think you understand the seriousness of your husband's condition. Kendra's voice remained professional, but there was steel underneath. He suffered a massive heart attack. His recovery can't be rushed for social obligations. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Harrison, who is this woman? She seems to think she can dictate our personal schedule. Harrison looked between his current wife and his ex-wife, feeling the tension crackling between them. Patricia, Dr. Washington, is one of the best cardiac surgeons in the country. We need to follow her medical advice. I see. Patricia's tone suggested she saw more than she was saying. Well, doctor, I hope you understand that my husband is a very important man. His company depends on his leadership. His company won't benefit from his death, Mrs. Whitmore. I suggest you encourage him to prioritize his health over his business obligations. With that, Kendra turned and walked out of the room, leaving Harrison staring after her with a mixture of admiration and regret. She's very presumptuous, Patricia said, settling into the chair beside Harrison's bed. I hope she understands her place. Her place. She's a service provider, Harrison. We're paying for her expertise, not her opinions about our lifestyle. Harrison found himself defending Kendra before he could think better of it. She just saved my life, Patricia. I think that earns her some respect. Of course, darling. I'm just concerned about the timeline for your recovery. The Melbourne Foundation Gala is in 3 weeks, and we've already sent out announcements about your keynote speech. As Patricia chattered about social obligations and business commitments, Harrison found his mind drifting to the woman who had just walked out of his room. Kendra had transformed herself completely, from a heartbroken divorcee to a confident, successful surgeon who commanded respect and saved lives. She had become everything he'd always believed she could be, and he had almost missed seeing it because he'd been too focused on what she couldn't give him rather than appreciating what she could. For the first time in 9 years, Harrison Whitmore wondered if he had made the wrong choice. 3 days later, Harrison's recovery was progressing ahead of schedule, much to his medical team's satisfaction and Patricia's relief. He found himself looking forward to Dr. Washington's twice-daily rounds with an anticipation that had nothing to do with his medical condition and everything to do with the woman who had once been the center of his world. Your vitals are excellent, Kendra said on Thursday morning, reviewing his chart with the same professional detachment she'd maintained since his surgery. The surgical sites are healing well, and your heart rhythm is strong. When can I go home? If you continue progressing at this rate, possibly by the weekend. But you'll need to follow strict activity restrictions and attend cardiac rehabilitation. Harrison nodded, watching her face for any sign of the woman he'd once known. Kendra, can I ask you something? If it's medical in nature. It is, in a way. Harrison paused, gathering courage. Did you always want to be a surgeon? Even when we were married? Kendra's pen stopped moving across his chart. That's not relevant to your current care. I'm curious about what motivated you to choose such a demanding field. Medicine chose me, not the other way around. Her voice carried a note of finality that suggested the conversation was over. I remember you always being interested in how things worked, how to fix things that were broken. Some things can't be fixed, Mr. Whitmore. They can only be replaced or removed. The words hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning that had nothing to do with cardiac surgery. Before Harrison could respond, the door burst open and Patricia swept in, her arms full of flowers and gift baskets. Good morning, darling. I've brought you some things from home to make this dreary place more cheerful. She barely glanced at Kendra. Doctor, when will my husband be able to resume his normal activities? We have the Morrison Industries dinner on Saturday. Your husband will not be attending any business dinners for at least 6 weeks. Patricia's face fell. 6 weeks? But that's impossible. Harrison, tell her that's impossible. Harrison looked between the two women, noting the stark contrast between them. Patricia, beautiful but focused entirely on social appearances, and Kendra, whose beauty was enhanced by intelligence and purpose. If Dr. Washington says 6 weeks, then that's what's medically necessary. But darling, people will talk. They'll think something is seriously wrong. Something was seriously wrong, Kendra interjected. Your husband's heart stopped beating. He was clinically dead for 3 minutes before the paramedics resuscitated him. Patricia paled. You never told me it was that serious. I didn't want to worry you unnecessarily, Harrison said quietly. The baby and I could have lost you. For the first time, Patricia seemed to grasp the gravity of what had happened. Kendra cleared her throat. I need to continue my rounds. Mr. Whitmore, I'll see you this evening. As she left, Harrison found himself wishing he could follow her, that he could have just 5 minutes of honest conversation without the weight of their past mistakes between them. She's very intense, isn't she? Patricia settled into the visitor's chair, arranging her maternity dress carefully. Not very warm bedside manner. She saved my life, Patricia. I think that's more important than warmth. Of course, darling. I just think doctors should be more accommodating to their patients' needs. Harrison thought about Kendra's precision during his surgery, her steady hands repairing his damaged heart, her refusal to let his social schedule override his medical needs. I think she's exactly what a doctor should be. That afternoon, Harrison was cleared for short walks in the hospital corridors. Against his better judgment, he found himself wandering toward the cardiac wing, hoping to catch another glimpse of Kendra in her element. What he saw instead stopped him in his tracks. Kendra stood near the nurse's station, but she wasn't alone. 3 children surrounded her, 2 boys and a girl, all appearing to be around 8 years old. They were obviously hers. The resemblance was unmistakable in their bone structure and mannerisms. But as Harrison studied them more closely, his blood ran cold. The girl had his eyes, his exact gray eyes, along with his mother's stubborn chin. One of the boys shared his dark hair and the analytical expression Harrison recognized from his own childhood photos. The other boy was quieter, more reserved, but when he smiled at something Kendra said, it was Harrison's smile looking back at him. Mommy, can we get ice cream from the cafeteria? The girl asked, tugging on Kendra's white coat. After you finish your homework, Lily. James, how's that math worksheet coming? It's easy. 3rd grade math is boring. The boy, James, spoke with the confidence of someone accustomed to academic success. I finished mine too, said the quieter boy. Can I go to the library? Mrs. Peterson said they got new books about space. Of course, Noah. But stay where I can find you. Harrison felt the world spin around him as the names and faces clicked into place. These weren't just Kendra's children, they were his children. The timing was perfect, their ages exactly right for conception just before or after their divorce. Kendra had been pregnant when she left him, or she'd gotten pregnant shortly after, which meant, Dr. Washington? A nurse approached Kendra with a question, and Harrison quickly ducked into an empty patient room before she could see him. His mind raced as he processed what he'd just witnessed. Kendra had children. 3 children who looked exactly like him at that age. Children who would be 8 years old, born approximately 9 months after their divorce. He had children. Living, breathing, brilliant children who didn't even know he existed. The woman he'd divorced for being Barren had given birth to triplets, his triplets, and never told him. Harrison's hands shook as he made his way back to his room, his heart monitor beeping erratically enough to bring a nurse running. Mr. Whitmore? Are you all right? Your heart rate is elevated. I'm fine. Just tired from walking. But he wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. Everything he thought he knew about his life, his choices, his marriage to Patricia, had just been turned upside down by 3 children in a hospital corridor. That evening, Kendra knocked on Harrison's door for her evening rounds, noting his elevated vital signs on the monitor outside his room. Your heart rate has been irregular this afternoon. Any chest pain or shortness of breath? Harrison looked at her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. I'm always honest about medical matters. This isn't medical. Harrison's voice was steady despite the chaos in his mind. I saw you with 3 children this afternoon. In the hallway. Kendra's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing a flash of panic before she regained control. My personal life isn't your concern. Are they mine? The question hung in the air like a live wire. Kendra's hands stilled on his chart, and for a long moment, the only sound was the beeping of his heart monitor. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Kendra. I saw them. They look exactly like me at that age. The girl has my eyes. One of the boys has my smile, and they're the right age. Harrison's voice grew more urgent. Are they my children? Kendra set down his chart and moved to the window, her back to him. Your children are none of your business. My children? So you admit they're mine? I didn't say that. You didn't deny it either. Harrison tried to sit up, ignoring the pain in his chest. Kendra, please. I have a right to know. You have no rights where my children are concerned. She turned back to face him, and Harrison was shocked by the fury in her eyes. You gave up any rights to them when you called me Barren and threw me away like defective goods. You were pregnant when you left me. I found out 2 weeks after our divorce was finalized. And you never told me? Kendra's laugh was bitter and painful. Tell you what, that the woman you divorced for being unable to have children was pregnant with triplets? That your barren ex-wife was carrying 3 babies while you were planning your engagement to Patricia Melbourne? Harrison felt like he'd been punched in the chest. Triplets. Lily, James, and Noah. They're 8 years old, brilliant, and perfect in every way. And they've grown up just fine without knowing their father exists. Why didn't you tell me? Harrison's voice cracked with emotion. I had a right to know about them. You had a right to know when you were my husband and we were trying to have children together. You lost that right when you decided I was worthless without a functioning reproductive system. I was wrong. I was so incredibly wrong about everything. Yes, you were. But being wrong doesn't give you retroactive parental rights. Harrison stared at her, seeing not just the successful surgeon, but the woman who had raised his children alone, who had built an incredible life while carrying the secret of their existence. What are they like? He asked quietly. Kendra's expression softened slightly at the genuine interest in his voice. Lily is an artist. She sees the world in colors and shapes and emotions. She's fiercely protective of her brothers and has your stubborn streak. And the boys. James is the leader. He's brilliant with numbers and logic, reads everything he can get his hands on, and has been talking about starting his own business since he was 6. He has your analytical mind. What about Noah? Noah is the gentle one. He loves books and stories, asks thoughtful questions about everything, and has an empathy that amazes me every day. He's the peacemaker when his siblings argue. Harrison felt tears threatening as he pictured these children he'd never met. They sound incredible. They are. I've raised them to be kind, intelligent, and independent. They don't need anything from you. But I need them. The admission was raw and honest. Kendra, I've missed 8 years of their lives. Please don't make me miss any more. It's not about what you need, Harrison. It's about what's best for them. And what's best for them? Growing up without knowing their father. Growing up without being hurt by their father. Kendra's voice was fierce with protective anger. You destroyed me when you left. You call me names that still hurt to think about. I won't let you do that to them. I would never hurt them. You said you'd never hurt me too. Harrison had no answer for that. The young man who had spoken such cruel words to the woman he'd promised to love forever seemed like a stranger now, but the damage he'd caused was still very real. What can I do to prove I've changed? Nothing. There's nothing you can do. Those children have a life, a routine, a sense of security that doesn't include you. I won't disrupt that for your peace of mind. Don't I get a chance to know them? To be their father? You had that chance 9 years ago. You chose your company's legacy over our family's future. Before Harrison could respond, the door opened and Patricia entered, carrying a designer overnight bag. Hello, darling. I brought you some real pajamas instead of those horrible hospital gowns. She stopped when she saw the tension in the room. Is everything all right? Dr. Washington was just explaining my discharge instructions, Harrison said quickly. Wonderful. I've arranged for the best private nurses, and I've had our bedroom converted into a recovery suite. You'll be much more comfortable at home. Kendra watched this exchange with professional detachment. Mr. Whitmore will need cardiac rehabilitation 3 times a week and regular follow-up appointments. He cannot return to high-stress work situations for at least 6 weeks. Of course, we'll make all the necessary arrangements. Patricia moved to Harrison's bedside with possessive familiarity. I can't wait to get you home and properly taken care of. I'll prepare your discharge paperwork for tomorrow morning, Kendra said, gathering her charts. Good evening. As she left, Harrison felt a desperate urge to call her back, to continue their conversation, to somehow bridge the gap between them that 9 years and 3 secret children had created. She really is quite cold, isn't she? Patricia observed, settling into her chair. I hope your recovery won't require too much interaction with her. She's not cold. She's professional. If you say so, darling. Now, let me tell you about the nursery plans. I've hired the most wonderful designer, and she has the most exquisite ideas for incorporating the Whitmore family colors. As Patricia chattered about nursery designs and baby preparations, Harrison's mind was entirely focused on the 3 children he'd just learned existed. His children. His brilliant, beautiful children who didn't even know his name. Kendra was right about one thing. He had given up his rights to them when he destroyed their marriage. But that didn't stop him from wanting to know everything about them, to be part of their lives somehow, to maybe earn a place in their world. He had spent 9 years building a life with Patricia, convincing himself he was happy, that he'd made the right choice. Now, in the space of a single conversation, everything had changed. The children he'd wanted so desperately had been there all along, growing up without him while he'd focused on creating new ones with a woman who saw him as a status symbol rather than a person. Kendra is facing an impossible choice. What would you do in her situation? Let me know in the comments. 2 weeks later, Harrison had been discharged from the hospital and was slowly adjusting to life as a cardiac patient. The enforced rest and limited activity gave him far too much time to think about what he'd learned, and he found himself obsessing over the 3 children he couldn't forget. He hired a private investigator, discreetly, without Patricia's knowledge, to learn what he could about Kendra's life over the past 9 years. What he discovered both amazed and devastated him. Kendra had struggled tremendously in the early years. Medical school while pregnant with triplets, giving birth 6 weeks premature, raising 3 babies while studying for her boards. Her mother had moved from Chicago to help, sacrificing her own retirement to care for her grandchildren while Kendra completed her education. The financial records showed years of struggle, student loans, medical bills, childcare costs that would have been crushing for anyone without a strong support system. Kendra had worked part-time jobs between classes, taken on research projects for extra money, and somehow managed to graduate with honors despite everything. The photos the investigator provided showed the progression of their lives. Kendra looking exhausted but determined at her medical school graduation, holding 3 toddlers. The children's first day of school, all 3 of them brilliant and beautiful. Family holidays spent with Kendra's mother, who had clearly been the father figure in their lives until her death 2 years ago. Harrison studied every photo with growing regret and admiration. Kendra had built an incredible life for herself and their children, becoming not just a doctor, but one of the most respected cardiac surgeons in the country. The children were thriving, honor students, involved in extracurricular activities, confident and well-adjusted despite growing up without their father. They didn't need him. Kendra had been right about that. But that didn't stop him from wanting to be part of their lives, to somehow make up for 9 years of absence. Harrison, you're very quiet this morning. Patricia's voice interrupted his brooding. She sat at their breakfast table, her pregnancy now quite advanced, reviewing guest lists for various social events she was planning around his recovery. Just thinking about work. You're not supposed to be thinking about work. Dr. Martinez was very clear about stress management. Patricia set down her papers with a concerned expression. You've been different since you got home from the hospital. Distant. I almost died, Patricia. That tends to change one's perspective. Of course, darling. But you're better now, and we have so much to look forward to. The baby, the foundation gala, the new product launch when you're cleared to return to work. Harrison looked at his wife, really looked at her, and tried to remember why he'd thought marrying her was the right choice. She was beautiful, certainly, well-connected, socially adept, from the right family. Everything his grandmother had said he needed in a wife. But listening to her talk about social events and business opportunities, he realized he felt nothing. No connection, no real affection beyond the pleasant companionship they'd built their marriage on. Patricia, do you love me? The question seemed to surprise her. Of course I love you. You're my husband, the father of my child. But do you love me? Who I am as a person, not what I represent or provide. Patricia's laugh was uncertain. What a strange question. We wouldn't have married if we didn't love each other. We married because it made sense. Social compatibility, financial security, family approval. But I'm not sure either of us ever really knew the other person. Harrison, you're talking nonsense. We have a wonderful marriage, a beautiful home, a baby on the way. What more could we want? What more indeed? Harrison thought about Kendra's fierce protectiveness of their children, her dedication to her profession, the strength she'd shown in building a life from nothing. That was love, the kind of deep, transformative emotion he'd thrown away in favor of social convenience. You're right. I'm probably just tired. That's understandable. Now, about the nursery, I've narrowed it down to 2 designers, and I'd love your input. As Patricia continued talking about paint colors and furniture, Harrison's mind drifted to 3 children he'd never met but couldn't stop thinking about. Somewhere across the city, they were probably getting ready for school, eating breakfast, living their lives completely unaware that their father was finally trying to figure out how to be part of their world. Meanwhile, at Kendra's house, "Mom, there's a man in a car outside." Kendra looked up from packing the children's lunches, her blood running cold at James's casual observation. "What kind of car?" "Expensive. Black. He's just sitting there watching our house." Kendra moved to the front window, her heart sinking when she saw the sleek sedan parked across the street. She recognized the car and the man sitting in it. "Harrison, kids, I want you to go out the back door this morning. Mrs. Peterson next door will drive you to school." "Why?" Lily asked, always the most direct of the 3. "Because Mommy needs to handle something, and I want you safe at school." "Is everything okay?" Noah's sensitive nature picked up on her tension immediately. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Just a precaution." After the children left through the neighbor's yard, Kendra marched out her front door and across the street to Harrison's car. He rolled down the window as she approached, looking guilty but determined. "What the hell do you think you're doing? I wanted to see them. Just see them." "So you're stalking my children?" "Our children. And I wasn't stalking. I was just watching. That's literally the definition of stalking." Kendra's voice was dangerously low. "How did you even get my address?" Harrison had the grace to look ashamed. "I hired an investigator." "You what?" "I needed to know about their lives, about what I missed." "Kendra, I've seen the photos, the school records, everything. You've done an incredible job raising them. I didn't do it for your approval. I know. You did it because you're an amazing mother. But they're my children too, and I have a right to know them. You have no rights where they're concerned. And if you don't stop this harassment, I'll get a restraining order." "Harassment? I'm trying to figure out how to be their father. You should have thought about that 9 years ago." Harrison got out of the car, and Kendra was struck by how much the heart attack had changed him. He looked older, more fragile, but also somehow more real than the polished Theo she'd once been married to. "Kendra, please. I know I have no right to ask for anything from you, but I'm asking anyway. Let me meet them. Let me try to be part of their lives." "Why?" "So you can hurt them the way you hurt me." "I would never hurt them. You said you'd never hurt me either." "I was young and stupid and scared. I let my family's expectations matter more than my own heart. But I've learned from that mistake." "Have you?" "Because from where I'm standing, you're still the same man who chose social status over love. You're married to Patricia Melbourne, expecting a baby with her, living the exact life you threw me away to have." Harrison was quiet for a long moment. "You're right. I am living that life. But I'm not happy, Kendra. I haven't been happy for 9 years." "That's not my problem." "I know. But maybe it could be part of the solution." "What does that mean?" "It means I made the wrong choice 9 years ago. It means I've spent nearly a decade married to someone I don't love, trying to convince myself I was happy. It means seeing you again, learning about our children, has made me realize I threw away everything that actually mattered." Kendra stared at him, seeing something in his eyes she hadn't seen in years. Genuine regret, real emotion, the man she'd once loved buried beneath the polished exterior. "It's too late, Harrison. Way too late." "Is it? What if I left Patricia? What if I told everyone the truth about our children? Then you'd be the same selfish man you always were, just with different priorities." Kendra's voice was firm. "I won't be the reason you blow up your marriage and hurt your pregnant wife. And I won't let you disrupt my children's lives for your own emotional needs. Our children. My children. I've raised them, sacrificed for them, been there for every milestone and setback. You contributed DNA, nothing more." The words hit Harrison like physical blows, but he couldn't deny their truth. "What can I do to earn the right to know them?" "There's nothing you can do. It's too late for grand gestures and dramatic declarations. You made your choice, and you have to live with it." "And if I can't live with knowing they exist, and not being part of their lives. Then you'll understand how I felt when you threw me away for being barren while I was carrying your children." With that, Kendra turned and walked back to her house, leaving Harrison standing in the street with the weight of 9 years of mistakes crushing down on him. 3 days later, San Francisco General Hospital. Kendra was reviewing surgical schedules when Dr. Martinez approached with a concerned expression. "Kendra, we have a situation. Harrison Whitmore is in the ER. Another cardiac event." Kendra's blood ran cold. "How serious?" "Serious enough. They're asking for you specifically. I can't treat him again. It's a conflict of interest. His wife is insisting on you. Says you saved his life before, and she trusts only you to do it again." Kendra closed her eyes, feeling the weight of professional duty warring with personal protection. "What's his condition?" "Unstable angina, elevated cardiac enzymes. Dr. Peterson thinks he may need an emergency angioplasty." "Fine. I'll consult, but Dr. Peterson takes the lead." When Kendra arrived in the ER, she found Harrison conscious but pale, connected to monitors that showed an irregular heart rhythm. Patricia stood beside his bed, tears streaming down her face. "Doctor, thank God you're here. Please tell me he's going to be okay." "We're running tests to determine the extent of the problem," Kendra said, moving to Harrison's bedside. "How are you feeling?" "Like my chest is being crushed," Harrison admitted. "But better now that you're here. Dr. Peterson is an excellent cardiologist. You're in good hands. I want you." The simple statement hung in the air, loaded with meaning that had nothing to do with medical care. Patricia looked between them with growing suspicion. "What's happening to him?" Patricia asked. "He was fine this morning, and then he just collapsed during a phone call. Stress can trigger cardiac events in patients with his condition." "Has he been under unusual pressure lately?" "No more than usual, although he has been distracted since his surgery." "Distant." Kendra looked at Harrison, seeing the guilt in his eyes. He brought this on himself, probably through the stress of discovering the children and wrestling with the implications. "We'll need to do an emergency catheterization to see if there are new blockages," Dr. Peterson announced, entering the room with Harrison's test results. "I'll assist," Kendra said, though every instinct told her to stay away. "No," Harrison said suddenly. "I want to talk to Dr. Washington first. Alone." "Mr. Whitmore, we need to proceed quickly. 2 minutes. Please." Patricia and Dr. Peterson reluctantly left the room, giving Harrison and Kendra a brief moment of privacy. "This is about the children, isn't it?" Kendra said immediately. "You're stressed because you found out about them. I can't stop thinking about them. About you. About what I threw away. So you're having a heart attack about it?" "Very mature. I know I have no right to ask this, but I need to see them. If something happens to me during this procedure, I need to know I've met my children." Kendra felt her resolve wavering at the genuine fear in his voice. "Harrison, I know I don't deserve it. I know I hurt you in ways that can't be forgiven. But please, don't let me die without knowing them." "You're not going to die. This is a routine procedure. You can't guarantee that." He was right, and they both knew it. Any cardiac procedure carried risks, especially for someone who'd already suffered major heart damage. "If you survive this procedure, if you recover completely, I'll consider letting you meet them. Once. Supervised. That's all I can promise." "Thank you. But Harrison, if you hurt them in any way, if you disappoint them or make them feel unwanted, I will make sure you never see them again. Do you understand?" "I understand." Dr. Peterson returned with the catheterization team, and Harrison was wheeled away for the procedure. Kendra found herself in the unusual position of waiting for news about a patient instead of providing it. "He's going to be fine, isn't he?" Patricia asked, settling heavily into a waiting room chair. "This baby needs its father. Dr. Peterson is excellent. Mr. Whitmore is in good hands. You saved him before. I know you'll save him again." "I'm not performing the procedure this time." Patricia studied Kendra's face with growing interest. "You know, there's something familiar about you. Have we met before?" Kendra's heart skipped. "I don't believe so." "Washington. Washington." Patricia's eyes suddenly widened. "Oh my God, you're her. You're Harrison's first wife." "I'm Dr. Washington, Mr. Whitmore's cardiac surgeon. You're Kendra Washington." "I remember now. Harrison mentioned you a few times when we first started dating. The woman who couldn't have children." The casual cruelty of the statement hit Kendra like a slap. I think you're mistaken. No, I'm not. You're the barren ex-wife. Patricia's voice grew cold and calculating. How convenient that you're the one treating my husband. Tell me, what are the chances of that being coincidence? Medical assignments are made based on expertise and availability, nothing more. Really? Because it seems awfully suspicious that Harrison's ex-wife just happens to be his surgeon. Almost like you orchestrated the whole thing. Mrs. Whitmore, your husband suffered a massive heart attack. I saved his life. If you have concerns about his medical care, I suggest you discuss them with the hospital administration. Oh, I will. And I'll be asking some very pointed questions about potential conflicts of interest. Before Kendra could respond, Dr. Peterson emerged from the procedure room with good news. The angioplasty had been successful, and Harrison was stable. The blockage was minor but in a critical location, Dr. Peterson explained. We were able to clear it completely. He should make a full recovery. Patricia burst into tears of relief, but Kendra found herself wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake in promising to let Harrison meet the children. The last thing she wanted was to complicate their lives with a man who might disappear again when the novelty wore off. But she'd given her word, and Harrison had looked genuinely terrified at the thought of dying without knowing his children. Despite everything he'd done, despite all the pain he'd caused, she couldn't bring herself to deny him that chance. The question was whether she was protecting her children or setting them up for heartbreak. 1 week later, Harrison had recovered from his second cardiac event and was back home under strict orders to avoid stress and maintain a light schedule. He'd also received several lectures from Patricia about the importance of taking better care of himself for the sake of their unborn child. What Patricia didn't know was that Harrison had been having long conversations with his lawyer about divorce proceedings and custody arrangements for a child he'd never mentioned. Kendra had called 2 days after his procedure with a carefully worded message. If he was serious about meeting the children, she would allow one supervised meeting at a neutral location. The conditions were non-negotiable, one meeting, in public, with her present the entire time. Harrison had agreed immediately. Now he sat in Golden Gate Park, at a picnic table near the playground, more nervous than he'd ever been in his life. He'd faced hostile corporate takeovers with more confidence than he felt about meeting his own children. They don't know who you are, Kendra had warned him. I've told them you're someone I work with who wanted to meet them. Nothing more. What should I call myself? Your name is fine. They won't make the connection. Now, watching Kendra approach with 3 children who looked like smaller versions of himself, Harrison felt his heart rate spike in a way that had nothing to do with cardiac issues. Kids, this is Mr. Whitmore, a colleague of mine from the hospital. Harrison stood up, trying to project calm confidence while internally marveling at how beautiful his children were. Lily was clearly the artist. She carried a small sketchbook and studied him with intense creative interest. James had the bearing of a natural leader, standing slightly in front of his siblings with protective alertness. Noah hung back a bit, watching everything with quiet intelligence. Hello, Harrison said, his voice slightly rough with emotion. It's very nice to meet you. Are you a doctor too? James asked with typical directness. No, I run a technology company. We make software that helps people do their jobs better. That sounds boring, Lily announced with 8-year-old honesty. Harrison laughed, a genuine, delighted sound that made Noah smile. It can be boring sometimes. What do you like to do that's not boring? I like to paint, and draw, and make sculptures out of clay. She's really good, Noah added loyally. She won the art contest at school. That's very impressive. What did you paint for the contest? A tree with different colored leaves, but each leaf was actually a different emotion. So anger was red and happiness was yellow and sadness was blue. Harrison stared at his daughter with amazement. That's incredibly creative. You're a real artist. Lily beamed at the praise, and Harrison felt his heart swell with pride. What about you, James? What do you like to do? I like math and science and reading about business. I'm going to start my own company when I grow up. What kind of company? Something that helps people solve problems. Maybe apps or websites or something that makes life easier. Harrison was struck by how similar James's interests were to his own at that age. That's a great goal. What's the first step in starting a company? You have to identify a problem that lots of people have, then figure out how to solve it better than anyone else. Exactly right. You sound like you've really thought about this. James straightened with pride at being taken seriously by an adult who clearly understood business. And Noah? What are your interests? Noah, the quietest of the three, looked up from the book he'd been carrying. I like to read stories and write my own stories. And I like to learn about space and planets and what's out there. What kind of stories do you write? Adventure stories mostly. About kids who go on quests and have to be brave and help each other. That sounds wonderful. Being a writer is a very important job. You get to help people imagine new worlds and possibilities. For the next hour, Harrison talked with his children about their interests, their school, their dreams for the future. He was amazed by their intelligence, their creativity, their obvious close bond with each other and with Kendra. Mr. Whitmore seems nice, Lily said to Kendra, loud enough for Harrison to hear. He listens when we talk, not like some grown-ups who just pretend to listen. And he knows about business stuff, James added. He gave me some good ideas about my company plans. He likes books too, Noah observed quietly. I can tell because he asked good questions about my stories. Harrison felt overwhelmed by their easy acceptance, their natural warmth, their obvious intelligence and good character. These were his children, brilliant, beautiful, kind children who had grown up without him, but who seemed eager to connect with any adult who showed genuine interest in their lives. We should probably head home for dinner, Kendra said eventually, though she seemed less tense than she had at the beginning of the meeting. Do we have to? Lily asked. I wanted to show Mr. Whitmore my sketchbook. Maybe another time, Harrison said, not wanting to push his luck. Will there be another time? James asked with typical directness. Harrison looked at Kendra, seeing uncertainty in her eyes. That's up to your mom. Can he come to dinner sometime? Noah asked. He could tell us more about his company, and I could show him my stories. We'll see, Kendra said diplomatically. As they prepared to leave, Lily impulsively hugged Harrison goodbye, a spontaneous gesture that nearly brought him to tears. Thank you for talking to us like real people, she said seriously. Some adults talk to kids like we're stupid, but you didn't do that. You're three of the smartest people I've ever met, Harrison replied honestly. It was an honor to talk with you. After they left, Harrison sat alone at the picnic table, processing what had just happened. He'd met his children, really met them, talked with them, connected with them. They were everything he could have hoped for and more. They were also completely Kendra's children, shaped by her values, her intelligence, her love. He could see her influence in their kindness, their curiosity, their close bond as siblings. For the first time in 9 years, Harrison understood what he'd actually lost when he'd thrown Kendra away. It wasn't just a wife. It was the chance to be part of something beautiful, meaningful, real. That evening, Kendra's house. Mom, I really liked Mr. Whitmore, Lily announced over dinner. He has kind eyes. And he's really smart about business, James added. He answered all my questions without making me feel dumb. He reminds me of someone, Noah said thoughtfully, but I can't figure out who. Kendra's heart skipped. What do you mean? Just something about his smile, or the way he tilts his head when he thinks. Like someone in a photo or something. Can we see him again? Lily asked. I want to show him my paintings. And I want to ask him more about starting a company, James said. Guys, Mr. Whitmore is just someone Mom works with. He's probably very busy. But he seemed to like talking to us, Noah pointed out. And he said we were smart. You were smart. All three of you. Mom, Lily's voice grew serious. Is Mr. Whitmore the reason you've been sad lately? Kendra's fork froze halfway to her mouth. What makes you think I've been sad? You get this look sometimes, like you're thinking about something that hurts. And it started around the time you had that important surgery at work. Kendra was continually amazed by her children's perceptiveness. Sometimes work can be emotionally complicated, because you have to take care of people who are really sick. Something like that. Well, I think Mr. Whitmore is nice, Lily declared with finality. And I think you should be friends with him. It's not that simple, sweetheart. Why not? You're both nice people who like smart things and helping others. That seems like a good basis for friendship. Out of the mouths of babes, Kendra thought. If only adult relationships were as simple as her 8-year-old daughter made them sound. That night, after the children were asleep, Kendra sat in her study grading medical resident exams and thinking about the afternoon. Harrison had been wonderful with the children, patient, interested, treating them like real people rather than cute accessories. She'd seen genuine emotion in his eyes when he looked at them, real pride when they shared their accomplishments. But she'd also seen the sadness, the regret, the weight of everything he'd missed. Part of her felt vindicated. This was what he'd thrown away when he'd chosen social status over love. Another part of her felt something dangerously close to sympathy. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. Harrison's name appeared on the screen. Dr. Washington. Kendra, thank you. Thank you for letting me meet them. They're incredible. They are. And they seem to like you, which frankly surprises me. It surprises me too. I was terrified they'd see right through me, realize I was just some stranger trying to insert himself into their lives. They're good judges of character. If they liked you, it's because you were genuine with them. I was. I've never been more genuine about anything in my life. Kendra was quiet for a moment, processing the sincerity in his voice. Kendra, can I ask you something? What? Would you consider letting me see them again? Not regularly, not as their father, just as someone who cares about them. Harrison, I know I have no right to ask. I know I've already gotten more than I deserve. But they're extraordinary, and I'd like the chance to know them better. To maybe be a positive presence in their lives somehow. What about Patricia? What about your new baby? That's complicated. Complicated how? Harrison was quiet for a long moment. I'm going to leave her, Kendra. I'm going to file for divorce. What? What? Because I don't love her. I never loved her. I married her because she fit the profile of what I thought I needed in a wife, but there's no real connection between us. She's pregnant with your child. I know. And I'll support the baby financially, be involved in its life. But I can't stay married to someone I don't love, especially now that I've been reminded what real love feels like. Kendra's heart skipped. What does that mean? It means seeing you again, seeing what you've become, meeting our children. It's made me realize that I threw away the only real love I've ever known. Harrison, don't do this. Don't do what? Don't blow up your marriage and hurt your pregnant wife because you're having some kind of midlife crisis brought on by your heart attack. This isn't a midlife crisis. This is clarity. This is guilt and regret and fear of mortality. You need to think very carefully before you make any major life decisions. I've been thinking about it for weeks. Kendra, I want to try to rebuild what we had. We can't rebuild something that was destroyed so completely. Too much has happened. Too much has changed. People can change. I've changed. Have you? Or are you just saying what you think I want to hear? I guess you'll have to decide that for yourself. Kendra closed her eyes, feeling the weight of too many conflicting emotions. I need time to think. Of course. But Kendra, whatever happens between us, please don't shut me out of the children's lives. They deserve to know their father, and I promise I'll never hurt them the way I hurt you. How can you promise that? Because hurting them would be like hurting myself. They're part of me in a way I never understood before today. After hanging up, Kendra sat in the darkness of her study, staring at family photos and trying to figure out what was best for everyone involved. The children had clearly connected with Harrison, and they deserved the chance to know their father. But she also had to protect them from potential disappointment and heartbreak. And then there was her own heart to consider, the part of her that had never stopped loving the man Harrison used to be, and that wondered if he might really have changed into someone worthy of a second chance. 2 months later, Harrison had been secretly meeting with the children once a week for 8 weeks, each encounter supervised by Kendra, but gradually becoming more relaxed and natural. He'd attended James's science fair, where his son had won first place with a project about renewable energy. He'd gone to Lily's art show at school, where her emotional landscape paintings had amazed everyone. He'd listened to Noah read original stories about brave children saving the world through kindness and cooperation. Each meeting made him fall more in love with these incredible children and more aware of what an idiot he'd been to miss their first 8 years. Today was different, though. Today, Lily had asked him point-blank why he looked so much like them. "Mr. Whitmore, are you related to us somehow?" she'd asked with typical artistic directness while they sat at the park. Harrison had looked at Kendra, who'd nodded slightly, permission to tell the truth. "Actually, I am related to you. I'm your father." The 3 children had stared at him in various stages of shock, confusion, and dawning understanding. "Our father?" James had asked with characteristic precision. "The one who couldn't be part of our lives." "That's right. Why couldn't you be part of our lives?" Noah had asked with genuine curiosity. Because I made some very bad choices a long time ago. I hurt your mother, and I didn't know you existed for most of your lives. You didn't know we existed? Lily's eyes had grown wide. No, your mother and I got divorced before she knew she was pregnant with you. She raised you by herself because I wasn't smart enough to deserve a family like ours. The children had processed this information with remarkable maturity, asking thoughtful questions about why their parents had divorced, why Kendra had never told them about Harrison, what this meant for their future. Are you going to be our dad now? Noah had asked finally. I'd like to be, if you want me to be. But that's something we all have to decide together. What about your other family? James had asked, ever practical. Mom told us you have a wife and a baby coming. That's changing. But no matter what happens with my other relationships, you three will always be my children, and I will always want to be part of your lives. Now, 2 hours later, Kendra and Harrison sat on her front porch while the children processed this new information inside the house. They took it well, Kendra observed. They're incredible kids. You've raised them to be thoughtful and resilient. They're going to have questions. Lots of questions. I'll answer them honestly. Even the difficult ones. Like why you divorced me. Why you called me barren and defective. Harrison winced. I'll find age-appropriate ways to explain that I was young and scared and made terrible mistakes. And when they ask why you're divorcing Patricia, I'll tell them that I realized I was trying to build a life with someone I didn't really love, and that wasn't fair to anyone involved. Kendra studied his face in the porch light. You're really going through with the divorce. I filed papers yesterday. Patricia is not handling it well. I can imagine. What about the baby? I'll be involved in its life, financially and emotionally. But I can't stay married to Patricia just because she's pregnant. She's going to fight you. Publicly, messily. Probably. But Kendra, I can't keep living a lie. Seeing you again, meeting our children, remembering what real love feels like. I can't go back to pretending that social compatibility is enough. What are you saying? Harrison turned to face her fully. I'm saying I want a chance to earn your forgiveness. I want to be a real father to our children. And if you'll let me, I want to try to rebuild what we lost. Harrison, I know it's a lot to ask. I know I hurt you in ways that might be unforgivable. But I'm not the same man who walked away from you 9 years ago. Prove it. How? Time. Consistency. Show me that you can be a reliable father to our children before you start talking about anything else. Fair enough. What about us, though? Is there any chance you could ever forgive me? Ever trust me again? Kendra was quiet for a long moment, looking at this man who had once been her everything and then her greatest source of pain. I don't know. The woman you hurt so badly is still part of me. But so is the woman who loved you more than anything in the world. I still love you, Kendra. I never stopped loving you. Love isn't enough, Harrison. You taught me that. You're right. Love isn't enough. But love plus respect, plus commitment, plus the wisdom that comes from making terrible mistakes, maybe that's enough. Before Kendra could respond, the front door opened and 3 children appeared. We've been talking, James announced with formal seriousness, and we've decided we want you to be our dad. But we have conditions, Lily added with artistic drama. What conditions? Harrison asked, trying not to smile at their solemn expressions. You have to come to all our school events, Noah said. You have to teach James about business, Lily continued. And you have to listen to my stories, Noah added. And you have to be nice to Mom, James finished with protective firmness. She's the best mom in the world, and if you're mean to her, we don't want you around. Harrison felt his throat close with emotion. Those are very reasonable conditions. I accept them all. Good, Lily said with satisfaction. Now, do you want to see my new painting? It's about families that get put back together. As Harrison followed his children into the house they'd never shared, with Kendra walking beside him, he felt something he hadn't experienced in 9 years. Hope. Real hope, based not on social expectations or financial security, but on love, forgiveness, and the possibility of second chances. It would take time to rebuild trust, to prove he'd really changed, to create the family they all deserved. But for the first time since he'd made the worst mistake of his life, Harrison believed it might actually be possible. 6 months later, the wedding was small and intimate, held in Kendra's backyard under the oak tree where the children used to play. Harrison had spent the past 6 months proving his commitment, showing up for every school event, every soccer game, every art show. He'd been patient with Kendra's lingering trust issues, consistent in his devotion to the children, and completely honest about his past mistakes. The divorce from Patricia had been ugly and public, with tabloid stories about the billionaire CEO who'd abandoned his pregnant wife for his ex. But Harrison had weathered the storm with grace, focusing on building relationships with his children and slowly earning back Kendra's trust. Do you, Harrison, take Kendra to be your wife, to love and support her dreams, to respect her independence, and to be a true partner in all aspects of your life together? I do, with all my heart, for all my life. Do you, Kendra, take Harrison to be your husband, trusting in his growth and change, believing in his commitment to you and your children, and opening your heart to love again? I do. As they kissed to seal their remarriage, 3 children cheered from the front row, followed by Kendra's mother, who had flown in from Chicago for the occasion. Harrison's reformed family, his grandmother, had grudgingly come to respect Kendra's accomplishments, and the colleagues and friends who had supported them through their individual journeys. Ladies and gentlemen, the officiant announced, I present to you the Whitmore family, Harrison, Kendra, Lily, James, and Noah. Later, as they danced to their old wedding song under string lights in the garden, Harrison marveled at how different this felt from both their first wedding and his marriage to Patricia. Any regrets? Kendra asked as they swayed together. Only one. What's that? That it took me 9 years to find my way back to you. Maybe we both needed those 9 years. Maybe we needed to become the people we are now before we could make this work. Maybe. But I'm grateful for every day from now on. Even when I'm grumpy from being on call for 36 hours. Especially TH. I'll love watching you handle them with the same firm kindness you've always shown. And when your business trips conflict with school events, then business trips get rescheduled. Family comes first now. Kendra smiled, seeing the truth of that commitment in his eyes. I love you, Harrison Whitmore. I love you too, Dr. Kendra Whitmore. Thank you for giving me a second chance I didn't deserve. Thank you for becoming someone who did deserve it. As the evening progressed, Harrison found himself watching his children dance with their cousins, their grandparents, their friends from school. Lily had painted a special portrait for the wedding, a tree with strong roots and spreading branches, representing their blended family. James had given a speech about second chances and the importance of forgiveness that had left half the guests in tears. Noah had written a story about a prince who learned that true treasure wasn't gold or kingdoms, but the love of the people who mattered most. Harrison's heart was full in a way it had never been during his first marriage or his years with Patricia. This wasn't love based on social compatibility or family expectations. This was love earned through growth, forgiveness, and the daily choice to put family above everything else. Dad? The word still made Harrison's heart skip every time one of the children said it. He turned to find Noah approaching with his characteristic, thoughtful expression. Yes, son. I'm glad you found your way back to us. Me too, buddy. Me too. As the celebration continued around them, Harrison reflected on the journey that had brought them all to this moment. He'd lost an arm in business terms, Patricia, the social status, the approval of certain family members, but he'd gained something infinitely more valuable. He'd gained a real family, built on love, respect, and genuine connection. He'd gained the chance to be the husband Kendra deserved and the father his children needed. He'd gained the opportunity to use his wealth and influence to support Kendra's medical research and the causes that mattered to their family. Most importantly, he'd gained the wisdom to recognize what truly mattered in life. Not what you could acquire or achieve, but who you loved and who loved you back. If this story of redemption and second chances touched your heart, please subscribe for more incredible love stories. Share this with someone who believes in the power of forgiveness and growth. Tell me in the comments, do you think Kendra was right to keep the children from Harrison initially? I read every single one. Sometimes the greatest gifts come from our greatest losses. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are also capable of the most profound change. And sometimes, love really can conquer all, not the easy love of compatible strangers, but the hard-won love of two people who've seen each other at their worst and chosen to believe in each other's best. Harrison and Kendra had learned that the hard way, but their love was stronger for having survived the test. Their children had gained not just a father, but living proof that families can be rebuilt, that people can grow, and that love is always worth fighting for. In the end, the woman Harrison had called Barren had given him the richest life imaginable, a life full of purpose, love, and the daily miracle of being part of something bigger than himself. And that was worth more than all the social status and business success in the world.